Should I start?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, today what the team government wants to say to you is the fact that students should be provided an equal chance and should be able to compete in an equal condition. The side opposition has come up to this podium and kept on stating about how EC better conveys students and better conveys individual talents. However, the government team believes that the admission officer system currently in Korea does not allow this to happen. In order to prove our stance, today team government has three clashes. First of all, which is more efficient? And second of all, which allows universities to choose so-called better students? And third of all, which rather lessens the amount of private education that currently exists in this current status quo. Now, I'd like to first of all, before I move on to our clashes, I'd like to clarify one point that was made by our Prime Minister that the opposition team seems to be kept on misunderstanding. What we have meant by getting rid of theses and self-introductory essays in the terms of admission officer systems, we weren't saying, by the essays that we were talking about in our arguments, we were talking about not the self-introductory essays, but the essays that actually require thinking. For instance, the Lunsul that they currently have in the status quo. We'd like to clarify that point before we move on. No, thank you, sir. Now, moving on to our clashes about which is more efficient. By efficiency, we believe that colleges are trying to actually accept students who can meet up to their standards and follow their courses and not have trouble in terms of doing so. And the colleges will be allowed to give these students a chance for them to actually learn more and actually be provided a higher chance of education. The leader of opposition said that he came up to the podium and stated directly that EC conveys students' characteristics better and stated that it shows individual talent and shows honesty and shows genuinity. However, ladies and gentlemen, one big question that has to pop up in our heads is the question of how. Our team does not get how ECs will actually allow to convey the characteristics of the students better. It is not clearly stated that by completing certain activities that this person is more honest, or that this person is more genuine, or that this person is more individually talented. We would like to hear a clear response about how EC can actually be able to convey each student's characteristics and each student's talents much more better. And second of all, regarding this part, we believe that honesty and genuinity is not something that can be achieved through extracurricular activities. Because students who are not, like we've mentioned before in our previous speeches by two of our team's speakers, we do not get how we believe that students who are not economically in a good situation can actually be able to afford for these ECs. As we all know, as a common fact, ECs don't require just one or two simple ECs. What we need is multiple activities that actually support the fact that that actually allow the students to be able to support that they actually have talent. However, to be able to prepare for these extracurricular activities, to be able to prepare for competitions, to be able to actually, for instance, in the case of art field, to be able to compete in these various competitions, they have to be able to not only be able to afford to prepare for every single one of their ECs and every single one of their competitions. They also have to be able to pay for every single competition that they attend to. And rather, by getting rid of this current admission officer system in Korea, the students will rather be based on their GPAs, rather be based on their 생활기록부s, and rather be based on what their teachers have to say, and rather be based on their recommendation letters, and rather be based on on the actual art pieces that they manage to be able to give to the professors on the spot of the test that they actually take. No, thank you, sir. And also, like our Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned, there are actually cases right now when we actually see the students who are not getting students who are actually getting other people to basically write their essays for them. We do not believe that this is the honesty and the genuinity that the opposition team is arguing for today. And also, yes, sir.
Your policy actually included judging people by essays and interviews and GPAs.
Right.
Isn't that go back?
Yes, we get your point. However, what we're saying is that for self-introductory essays that students are required to hand in from their homes, from their internet, from their PCs, are actually things that students can prepare away from the surveillance that the colleges currently have in the status quo. The students and the essays and the interviews that we are suggesting here is for that do already somewhat exist in the sushi programs that do not have the admission officer system, such as the Lunsul. We actually have the students come to these colleges and have an equal time and be provided provided the subject of the essay at the time at the same spot for all the students to compete in the same equal system. We do not believe that this is the same with the self-introductory essays that Hagwons and academies write for these students, and this actually shows an individual student's talent of writing, and actually shows an individual student's talent of speaking, and shows the individual talent's actual personality by having these interviews that are not simply 5 or 10 minutes as the opposition team has stated. We already know the status quo that for colleges they actually do in-depth interviews that actually takes at least up to an hour, and we clearly believe that this is actually very different from what they have stated before. Moving on to the second clash about which allows universities to choose better students. The deputy leader of opposition came up to the podium and stated, "Who is the government to choose which universities? What is the government to choose? What type of students are better students?" What we are suggesting from the government team is not a standard of who is a better student, who is not a better student. What the government wants for universities to do is to not be fooled by the fake facade that the students have made up and faked through their fabrications, like our Prime Minister has mentioned before in her speech. We already know the status quo that based on the education that the students are provided in the schools, they are not able to complete these extracurricular activities, and basically is out of the range of the current education system right now. So this clearly suggests that students will. And also, like our Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned in his speech about how people are basically writing essays for these students, and how this is basically faking faking themselves. We think that by having this, by abolishing the school admission system that we have, admission officer system that we currently have right now, we'd be able to prevent the universities from choosing the students who are basically faking and being able to provide an equal chance for the students who are basically neglected by this status quo of the admission system that we currently have. And moving on to a third argument about the private education sector. Like I mentioned before in our speech about how extracurricular activities don't require just 1 or 2 competitions, but rather multiple competitions and multiple investments and so on and so forth.